reviewed by city planning, that they were going to approve and make a recommendation to city council that the reservoir was to be rezoned to civic. So Paul, Elia, and myself got onto that city planning call, and we made the case that this bill should be withheld. However, I got to tell you, city planning still went ahead and recommended the bill be passed by city council. However, we got in touch with Josh Cohn with Councilman's office. He apologized profusely and said that was a major oversight, pulled the bill because coincidentally 2 weeks before he had us review the Falls Center, which is the old MCP hospital, for a zoning change. So he went through all the right channels on that one. We had a community meeting, it was approved, and with some conditions, and he just missed the reservoir for some reason. So Water Department reached out to us January of 2023, so more than a year ago, and we had our first meeting. We've had at least 4 meetings with the Water Department. They are posted on our website. You can read the text of the meetings. You can see the PowerPoints that they presented, and you can see the progression of information into the PowerPoints as we went through. In a nutshell, we said we would approve the zoning change on 2 conditions. One is they were going to take all the allowable uses out of the civic use that pertain to other uses that were not related to our reservoir infrastructure. That would have been bus stations, hospitals, adult daycare centers, cell phone towers. It was a long list of about 10 to 15 other functions, hospitals, research labs. So they took all that out of the bill and restricted it to just reservoir infrastructure improvements. And we also said at that time that in granting the zoning change, we wanted an agreement, and they said, well, give us a list of your requirements. So we gave them a long list over 4 or 5 pages of the different things we wanted relating to building height, setbacks, landscaping, fencing, lighting, vehicle entry, all that kind of thing. And they put those requests into a PowerPoint and actually split them up into what issues could be addressed by zoning and what issues could be addressed by a community agreement. They actually put many of those requests into the category community agreement. Also, in one of those meetings, they stated that they would be producing a master plan after we were asking them exactly what they were going to do. And he said, well, we're not sure exactly yet, but we'll produce a master plan. We'll run it by you. They've since withdrawn the promise of a master plan, and we're holding them to that. When we got our first round of requirements turned down, we had several community meetings on the issue, and the clear message to us was that we should hire an attorney, a zoning attorney, to represent us, because they weren't listening to us, and we did not know as citizens how we were going to write an enforceable agreement. So Paul Boney knows how to do that. So those of you who don't know Paul Boney, there he is on the call. So this is a formal introduction. He also assisted us in some other projects around the neighborhood, which we have successfully appealed and stopped. So I am going to hand over very shortly to Paul after I finish this recap. What's frustrating about this is the fact that we think we made a pretty darn good agreement, and we put it in front of the water department. They refused to meet with us on this agreement. They said they would just get back to us. So we checked in every couple of weeks. How's it going? How's it going? And after 2 months, 2.5 months, they got back to our agreement with a letter of, I'm going to say, non-committal. They didn't commit to anything. And they spun a big smoke screen out there relating to federal requirements that they couldn't predict, energy codes that they couldn't predict. And, you know, these things are not mysteries. They're very prescriptive and very, very precise. There's nothing mystical about a federal guideline that would stop us being able to agree to something with regard to lighting or security. So, you know, we reached a level of frustration, and I want to thank Paul Boney for helping us with our agreement. We still think it's a good one. Paradoxically, Councilman Jones put the bill back into the legislative pipeline, even without a community agreement. So the purpose of us getting together here and creating a critical mass of support for a community agreement and a master plan is that we're going to put pressure on Councilman Jones. We want him to hold that bill until we have an enforceable community agreement. So it's good to see you all on the Zoom tonight, and we will all work together to get a good outcome for new water infrastructure and a good outcome for our neighborhood, that we have a rebuilt neighbor that we can all live happily with. At that point, I will turn it over to Paul.
Thank you.
To take the skip over anything I missed and go through the crux of the PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, can you put up the first the agenda page or that first table of contents page?
Yeah. I think it stopped sharing. Okay.
I guess I'm looking. Okay, great.
You can see it?
Yeah. So I could also see slides on the left-hand side, by the way.
Okay, you want me to get rid of those?
I guess so.
Okay. Where's that button?
F5 for run. You do run the PowerPoint.
No.
Oh no, we're not going to run the PowerPoint. We're going to go to the
About
PowerPoint where we need to see it.
It's fine. Just click the next one if you will.
Okay.
Just click onto the agenda. Great. So you know, the big picture as I see it is that you know, this should, in a perfect world, this should be something easy to solve, because they want to completely renovate and overhaul and redo their water plant, which is fine with us, as long as they don't harm or negatively affect the neighborhood. And there should be ways to do that. But we're concerned that they, in their bureaucratic way, may not be as thoughtful and mindful about us as we want them to be. And so we want to put some parameters around what they're trying to do in terms of noise and lighting and all the things around the perimeter that would affect us. If the logical way to do it would be for them to put together a plan of what they want to do and show it to us, and we say, okay, that's great, change X and Y, and they'd say, fine, we can change X and Y, and then we'd say, great, now we're happy to support your rezoning because you've told us what you want to do, and we agree with what you want to do. Problem is, they're not, they've told us that they don't intend to begin their design process until 2030 or 2031. So either, the earliest 2030. So they can't really tell us what they want to do. So that puts us in the predicament of saying, well, if you can't tell us what you want to do, then we have to talk about parameters. That you can't, you have to have landscaping, the lights have to be pointed in certain directions, they can't be of a certain brightness and blah, 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 but because they haven't really told us that they're, and even if they can tell us an inkling of what they want to do, they're in no way ready to commit to doing it because they're just so many years away from actually designing it in a very serious way. So we put together all of our parameters at the very end of November and sent it to them and said, here's all the parameters we want. And, they've modified them substantially, and they also don't make them requirements anymore. They make them sort of aspirations. So maybe you should flip through some of these slides, Hillary, as I'm talking. I should have told you to do that. So they're gonna completely renovate the facility. Go ahead, next. They want this by right zoning, which means there's no requirement for them to come to us, and we don't have any leverage like we would at the zoning board to actually have some clout to be able to effectuate some changes or to negotiate some changes. Next, please. And so what we proposed is a two-part solution. The first is this contract, this an agreement, which for a year they were telling us they'd be willing to enter into. Now it's turning into just some sort of aspirational document where they would agree to consider certain things. And we also, next, please. Yes. Next, please. And the other thing we asked for is something that the zoning code allows in certain specified properties, not this one yet, which is that whoever develops the property has to do it according to an official master plan that's reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission and City Council. So those are a couple meetings sort of, in City Hall, downtown. They're on Zoom, and the Planning Commission and City Council, it's actually an ordinance that gets passed by City Council, where the master plan is reviewed and approved by these two entities. And there's public comment, and we have some political leverage there to say we don't like X and Y and whatnot. And we would like this property to be put into that category in the zoning code so that there is a master plan requirement. And a master plan is not like super detailed, but it's a framework, it's a plan. And that would give us and the city, frankly, an additional degree of oversight. We think that those two requests are pretty modest, and we're just looking for them to make a commitment to us with some specificity that they're not going to harm us in the ways that we mentioned. And we told them that, we're perfectly happy to negotiate all that stuff. We gave them our wish list at the end of November, but we can negotiate that wish list. We can compromise here and there. And if, they want to put up a building that's a little bit taller or something like that, we can talk to them about that as long as we all know what it is. Next, please. So unfortunately, the councilman right now, as far as we can tell, is not really being our hero or our advocate and not really sort of fighting for us. We would like him to meet with us and hear our concerns and requests, which we're going to be doing in a few days. And we would like him to flex his muscles when it comes to getting the water department to give a reasonable response to what we're asking for. He hasn't shown that level of sort of spine yet. He might, and he's a busy guy, and we understand all that, but we're trying to get higher on his list of priorities. And that's a lot of what we're talking to you about tonight, about how to raise our sort of political leverage with the councilman and encourage him to be our hero. Next, please. So we do have this meeting with the council. You know, he initially wanted us all in a room together. He says, let's get in a room, you guys and the water department, and I, the councilman, will be the mediator. And we said, no, we want to meet with you first alone. And so that we can talk to you, you can hear us, we can hear what your thoughts are, and we can come to some sort of, hopefully, some sort of alliance or a game plan and an understanding that he would support what we're trying to do, not really be a mediator, although we don't want to get hung up on the word mediator or mediation. It's in his office, and so, you know, we're fine with that. And then we set up a week or so later the meeting with us and the water department and the councilman. And you know, we're hoping that through our efforts and the councilman's efforts, the water department can really deliver a lot more than what they've currently delivered, which is really, frankly, a lot of arrogance and bureaucracy mixed together. I don't want to make it personal because I don't believe it is personal, either from anybody at the water department or anybody here. I just think it's a big bureaucracy, and they're, you know, need more of a encouragement. Next, please. So we've done a couple things. We've put a petition on the website, and we're going to ask all of you, and we're trying to market to and publicize to the entire community to sign the petition. The best way to do a petition is door to door with a real pen and paper. And so we think we may do that, but we also have the online option. And you know, we think that's going to be a good way to do it too. Next, please.
Yeah, Paul, at this point, I just wanted to thank Francis and Bill. They worked really, really hard to get this added page to the East Falls Community Council website. If you go to the Community Council website, look up East Falls Community Council main page. At the top, you will see a banner. If you click the banner, the petition will come up, and you will start to see information about our efforts, lobbying Councilman Jones to be on our side. So Bill and Francis, I'm handing a big thank you out to you. And I really want to, you know, it took many days of you going through this. Okay, Paul, back to you.
And all these QR codes, well, it's the same QR code, but every time you see the QR code, it'll take you just directly to that page. And again, yeah. And so we're asking you to go to that page, and there's really two things you can do. You can sign the petition, and also at the bottom of the page, there's just a place for your name and email that we can give you updates, email you updates on a more frequent basis. And of course, we, with the help of the folks that Hillary mentioned, have created yard signs. And so these are yard signs that are currently being produced, and it's double-sided. This one says, the first is addressed to Water Department. The flip side is addressed to Councilman Jones. Slightly different message. Same QR code, takes you to the same page that we've been talking about. And you know, we'd like to get these distributed around the neighborhood as soon as possible. Certainly, the homes that face the facility, it would be great if we could really get a lot of yard signs on those blocks and beyond, of course. So if you have friends in the neighborhood and can help us get people to put these on their lawns, that would be awesome. We think this is, and you know, the update page or the landing page for this QR code, we're going to provide updates on, and we're going to sort of use that page along the way to see who needs pressure, who needs praise, who needs criticism, who needs encouragement. And so that's hopefully going to be a dynamic page that adapts along the way. We're pushing as hard as we can to get the maximum protections. That's all we can do. That's all we can do. And it's generally a political matter. I mean, I'll end where I began, which is, you know, the fundamental problem, I think, is that they're not planning on designing this for another 6 years. And, but they want the zoning now. They want the zoning today. One could ask, is that a mismatch? Maybe they should hold off on the zoning until they have a better idea of what they want to build. And then it might be an easier process. I think that's a good question, and you know, we'll have to see where this goes, because right now we're shadow boxing a little bit, trying to put parameters around a project that we don't really know what it looks like. So that'll be part of our discussions with the councilman and the water department. And can you, like, do we have other slides, Hillary? Can you see what?
No, that's it. We
it.
have question time.
Yeah, I have some questions. It seems to me that a year or two ago, we got some details about exactly what the water department planned to do. Do we still have those details, or are we talking about some vague possibilities?
The details they spoke about were the construction of a tunnel, which is going to go from, and there were options for that route. So they are following, the detail they provided was basically on the tunnel. And the chosen option for the route of that tunnel was to go under the right-of-way of Route 1. So they're going to dig it down from each reservoir, and they're going to put a tunnel that goes 100 feet average below grade, so that they can empty one reservoir to the other. That is the limit of the detail they have provided. Now, what's interesting is that on that tunnel, there are several pump booster stations. Now, what's interesting is those locations have been decided. I know where they are because they were presented in a city planning commission request, and it was approved. They are located in parts of Fairmount Park, kind of that are not accessible to the public. But they didn't share that detail with us when they spoke about the tunnels. They couldn't tell us where the head of each end of the tunnel would be relative on each reservoir site. So it was still basically descriptive as to what they were describing. They couldn't tell us, are they making one big reservoir? Are they going to keep two? Are they going to make four? They couldn't tell us. They have committed to keeping the terracotta Art Deco building with the big windows, but not any other buildings on site. And they have stated they will be moving all their office function to the other side of Fox, away from the reservoir. I'm not so sure I would call that detail. That is more of a kind of overarching strategical description of
What
things
about the medical facility that was mentioned?
There's
Medical offices?
no plans, no plans. They will create offices for
Wow.
their staff. That's all.
Okay,
Uh,
thanks.
Hillary, you spoke of pumping stations. Are you
Yeah.
speaking of freshwater pumping station or sewer
It's-
water pumping stations?
No, it's pumping stations to keep the water moving between the reservoirs because they're going to empty one reservoir whilst they're rebuilding the other. And then they'll pump all the water back so that, you know, each area will be fed off one of two reservoirs.
Okay. The reason why I asked the question, because I know there's a pumping station right at Neil Drive, and there's also a pumping station right on the boulevard. But those are sour water. There's
Mhm.
sewers.
Yeah, no, this is well, this infrastructure is only drinking water. No storm, no sewer.
Should mention that even the things that they've sort of, as we say, agreed to, they haven't really agreed to
You
it.
can raise your hand, I think, if you want.
They've told us they'll do it.
No, it has to be as part of it.
Until it's in writing and somehow enforceable, or in the bill or somehow enforceable, it's just talk. It's just talk. It may be good faith talk and whatnot, but you know, we could be here 10 years from now, and all of a sudden some water department engineer says we should do it this way, not that way, and you know, bureaucracy, you know, rolls on, and we're nowhere.
Here's the-
I
Bill,
think
you
Bill and
call?
Francis, Bill, I believe you have a question. I heard you trying to speak.
I just wanted to add a couple things on the petition. First of all, the easiest way to complete the petition is through the East Falls Community Council website. There's a link right to the petition, and doing it online is fast. You can do it on your laptop or on your mobile phone. And also, you mentioned a hard copy, and I have a hard copy of the petition, which I can make available to anyone who wants to run around the hard copy petition. All you have to do is email me, and I'll get you, or I'll email you the PDF file that you can print off, or give you a hard copy if you need a hard copy. And also, when you're filling out the petition, there is a question there. If you want a yard sign, you can say, yes, I'd like to have a yard sign. So you can fill it in right there and we'll know. Okay, that's it.
Right.
Thanks, Bill. Any other questions? Does Paul, I know you've been very involved in this as we've gotten to this point. And thanks so much for the core group here who've been working so hard.
Hillary,
My pleasure.
sorry, one more quick one. Francis wanted to know if,
When's our demonstration?
are we going to do a demonstration? And I could also volunteer to add to the petition a question if people would be interested in participating if we do have a public demonstration.
I think just thinking out loud right now, we should have our meeting with Councilman Jones. Let's
Okay.
get take a temperature after that meeting and see if we can make a prediction as to what kind of efforts we need to direct in that way.
Thank you.
Wow. I haven't been in a demonstration since 1969 down in Greensboro, North Carolina at a barber shop. Let's do it.
I
Wow.
think it might
We
be
got
prudent.
some.
It
we
might be
got some
prudent
great-
to see how the meeting with Jones goes first.
Right.
While we're brainstorming, I think the more sort of activism, the better. You know, if he helps us, well, we can always adjust the message of the rally at the time. It doesn't need to be critical of Jones. It can be, a neighborhood pride. We care about, you know, facility and how it impacts us. You know, we can ratchet it down. I think persistent activism is going to be helpful. I think this is going to be a process, and you know, the more pressure we bring to bear, I think the better. So we can think about it. We'll think about it.
I just received a newsletter from our state representative. Speaking of X amount of money that was allocated for this project, is Curtis Jones the only avenue that we can go through?
You know what, I spoke to Tariq Khan on that, Raymond. And I don't know if that was specifically for Queen Lane Reservoir. That was for generators and some electrical equipment. That sounds like it needs replacing right away. You know, if this is a 10-year project and they're not even really doing anything, there's no new infrastructure there for close to 10 years. There's going to be failures of, you know, current equipment. Most of that equipment only has a life of, you know, 22 years if you're lucky.
Yeah, and that's only if you're doing the proper PMs on them as well. My concern with this whole project is that I remember a little bit more than 30 years ago when they had the sewage water, when they expanded all the plants. The Northeast plant was expanded, the Southwest plant was expanded, and so was the Southeast plant was expanded. And it took them decades to complete that project. And I could just remember some of the problems they had within the neighborhood when the construction started, where people up in the Bridesburg area who used to hang their clothes out couldn't even do things like that with the amount of trucks going through, the dust in the air, the concerns they had then. So, I mean, there are a lot of things that can go on in this area, and we need to really put our foot out there first to make sure that a lot of things don't happen there. So I think what we're doing is correct. And I think that a rally or some type of get together helps promote to let people in the neighborhood know what's going on. So, and it doesn't have to be a negative thing toward our Councilman Jones, but we need to let people know. I mean, even if I put leaflets, if we put little papers out letting people know about the survey and things of that part, the bottom line is that the more people we inform, make sure everybody know what's going on, the better we can be working as a group, I think.
Well, the concern that I have after learning about, you know, the proposed new generators is that if they're not handled correctly, generators could be very annoying. They have to be tested monthly. They have to run. If there's not some kind of an attenuation package, they could be very, very noisy. We had addressed that in the agreement that Hillary and I put together. And, you know, it was just kind of disregarded. They said, you know, we'll comply with the sound ordinance of the city, which in reality is nothing. And it's totally unenforceable. So there are serious concerns.
Yes. And also, what is the generator going to be running on? Is it going to be diesel fuel? Is it going to be electric?
Well, you got a choice. It wouldn't be electric, but it would be either diesel or gas.
Natural gas.
Gasoline, right. I mean, yeah, natural gas, exactly.
So this is Jim O'Toole. So I have I guess a question. How broad has this group reached out to the community at large who surrounds the entire project area? Meaning, has this really been designed for outreach to people who live across the street or adjacent? Or has it been designed to reach out to the broader community who surround the water treatment facility? And let me just sort of follow through on a thought. So from a political standpoint, you know, it strikes me you want to have as broad a constituency as possible who are going to be potentially adversely impacted by this project. We don't even know what the project's going to be, which is the reason why they want to change the zoning now anyway, to eliminate us and others in the community at large from having input in the future. So these projects are funded by federal dollars, one way, shape, or form. And federal dollars have an environmental justice component that you cannot otherwise adversely start impacting communities, particularly communities of color and communities of economic challenges. It strikes me that our community is much larger than just an individuals who live across the street or down the corner. It's a broader community that may be impacted by the activities that will occur over time. So, Paul, with that in mind, have you given any thought to that aspect of trying to broaden the political base, as well as to leverage that which would be required for any kind of federal funding?
Which Paul?
Let me, whilst you decide which poll, you know, Jim, I've driven all around the site, and I gotta wonder, as you drive along Abbotsford Road there, there you see the ugliest cyclone fencing. There you see a giant berm, continually denuded of trees. The reservoir is an eyesore along there. You look up from Route 1, you see those chemical tanks that are up there. We don't know if those chemical tanks are remaining. The only place you can see into the site and you see chemical tanks is from that corner of Abbotsford and Fox. So there is most likely some injustice, I think, in that. And I personally, it's like these emails have gone out to 1,000 people in our neighborhood. And you know, there may be some value in trying to expand to that area. And I think we should look at that, because it's like, yeah, we are just talking right now, Queen Lane, Henry, and Fox, 3 sides.
Right.
You'll be talking about
easy,
the 4th side.
Right. You're easy to marginalize if that's, on a number of ways, you're easy to marginalize if that's going to be the constituency. If there's a broader constituency, if there's a broader community impact, if that impact straddles over into environmental justice issues, which are sensitive issues for federal and state and local regulators, if the fact that you're now having, you were talking about compressors or generators, to the extent that there's emissions coming off of those, that creates additional air emissions in an already impacted area because of the truck traffic and automobile traffic that adjoins the site and adjoins our neighborhood. And there's increased stringent air requirements that are coming on board there. These are the kinds of things that strike me that would resonate. And all you really want to do is you just want to kill the zoning long enough to let the plan develop, so you have a chance to actually take a shot at seeing what a plan looks like in 20 years or 10 years or whenever. And then you have a chance to attack the plan without having zoning in place. So this is just about killing zoning in my mind. And that's maybe one way to do it.
I would like to say that I have 40 years experience working with companies that do environmental impact statements. And if we're talking about environmental impact statements, including bioarchaeology and all of the rest, I have great contacts. I've done it for decades.
Well, first of all, thanks, because I think that is, but my guess is in the near term, we don't have to go as far as to prove up or start to do our own environmental impact study. I think ultimately, that may be something that we would attack in 10 years or whenever the plan comes. Right now, it's just getting a broad enough constituency within the community at large and showing the impact, the adverse impacts to that constituency as a community at large, and not simply a bunch of folks who live across the street from a facility. And I don't want to minimize that. I completely agree with you're the folks on the front line, but I think it's a broader issue for the community at large.
Yes, yes, I totally agree with that. Not only just this project, any project we have in East Falls, hopefully we can have a collective effort because we show more force that way. But back to the environmental and a lot of those things, the companies such as War Department or whoever, whenever they put things in place, they must already do these things. They must already have these environmental reports. So we can wait for them to do that and we can pick it apart when that comes out. But I agree with you. It's very important that the total area is aware of what's going on and we make sure the information is out there for them. And sometimes, even though we send a lot of emails out to people, sometimes door to door and passing out leaflets helps out as well. And I'm willing to do that if we have the leaflets. No problem at all doing that.
I just want to make sure the water department knows what they need to do.
Yes.
I've worked on bioarchaeology projects for 40 years in the city of Philadelphia, where Vine Street Expressway was reconstructed, and the people who were paying for it really did not want to hear about it, but they had to ultimately pay for it, and it dragged down the projects for months, generated lots of income for archaeologists and whomever. These environmental impact statements are important, and although I am not a person who could start one, I have great connections. I've done it for decades. And would the water department go ahead and fund one of those things for, I don't know, $20,000? Who knows? I'm not sure.
We're saving
Everybody
them a
wants
lot
to
more.
save money.
We're saving them a lot more money by, agreeing to change the zoning because it's like if the project gets fast tracked once they know what they're doing, they don't have to pay lawyers to get variances for every refusal. We're saving them a wad of money. So, 20,000 for an impact study is peanuts compared to what we're saving them with this zoning change.
Yeah, they may be looking at the impact on the environment, but there's archaeological and cultural stuff. Who knows what's buried under that soil?
Right. No,
Who
you're
knows?
right. And
I've been there, done that.
There'll
You
come
do
a
not
time when
know.
there'll become a time when there'll be a PIND study. There'll come a time when they'll have to look at environmental ecological impacts. There'll come a time for all that.
Good.
Right now, all we got to
Excellent.
do is just kill the zoning.
I hear you.
I'd like to ask a more skeptical question. I have not found any information that we've gotten from the water department to be credible. I don't believe, having worked on master plans in my career, Hillary's worked on master plans in his career. I find it really hard to believe that they've been funded without putting pencil to paper and not having a plan. There is just no organization or government that is going to release that kind of funding without some planning. And I have a feeling and a deep suspicion that they're just not giving us any information.
Yeah.
So have you
Dig a
filed
tunnel under the river.
have you filed a right
what kind
to
of
know?
detail is that?
Have you filed a right to know request?
No. Now, if I knew how to do that.
So there's two avenues. So there's a federal component, right? So you find a FOIA to the feds who are going to fund it, and you file a right to know to both the city, the water department, anybody else whose hands or fingerprints are on it.
The state.
They will start to fight with you over deliberative privilege and a bunch of other nonsense as to why they are or not going to give it up. But in the end, most of that stuff probably isn't, unless it goes to a direct contract, is going to be producible under those requests. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy, and you may end up in a fight, but that at least is the one way to keep them accountable.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, on 4401 Ridge, we definitely garnered information from the city on the right to know. So, you know, I think we should do the same here also. It's a way of keeping tabs. I had one question, Bill Huffner and Francis, when folks fill out the petition, because I see a lot of people here and I don't know exactly where they live or their emails.
It asks for all of that.
Does that, when you sign the petition, it goes on the petition, right?
Yep.
Yes, some of that will not be visible. Usually what's visible will be the name and the email address. The address and the zip code's required. I mean, I can set required fields to require the zip code, and the address I can't remember, but it might be required.
Yes,
Those things are not visible to the public. So anyone else looking at the petition can see, yes, who signed in their email address, but that's all.
But you can.
But we, in the background, as I set it up, I can see all that information, back it up, and that's what we can send to Councilman Jones with real data about people who actually live in East Falls. We can sort obviously on the zip code and so forth, or any zip codes, and you know, not have any people from Australia reporting to Curtis Jones. So if I may, so that's handled. Francis had another question.
And this comes back to asking for more information, and I know everyone has a lot on their plate, so I'm not trying to make more work for anyone, but there must have been strings attached, which comes back to the Freedom of Information Act or the HOIA or whatever the state and city equivalent is. There must have been strings attached and requirements that had to be filed for them to even apply for this money. There must be, I don't know, what I would call grant applications or something. Nobody just gives you that kind of money without, and I guess you'd have to file the Freedom of Information Act or a HOIA to
Are
find
you
out
talking
what
about federal money, state money?
federal, state, and the
Okay,
city
well,
maybe too.
The state money did not come with strings. It just came.
The federal
it's-
money?
No, the state. The
How about
state
the
money.
federal money?
I don't know if any federal money has come their way yet. Don't know that.
I don't think they've received money or even applied for money for the project that we're talking about. That's going to be in the future, and that's part of the infrastructure.
Right.
This is going to be $1 billion or more, or something, you know, in the order of $1 billion.
But they are already touting how much money they'll be receiving. So
That's fine. I'm just answering that I don't think they've applied for the money yet. They may have it earmarked for Philadelphia, and whatnot, but I don't think they've applied. I think I want to just speak to this very good question and idea about who our audience is. And I want to say that, you know, it's often difficult for community groups, being volunteers and limited time and whatnot, to do some real community organizing and really go door to door, even in our own neighborhood or our own prime areas, you know, along the streets that we're talking about, let alone the streets that we're just beginning to talk about. And so if anybody does have the capacity to take a clipboard and do some door knocking, please volunteer for that and tell us that you're willing to do that. We're happy to give you an information sheet and some talking points and a petition and whatever you need. But that is the stuff that's good as gold. That's what, it's not just gets another name on the list, but it makes a relationship, and relationship pays off in the future, and there's just nothing but good comes of that. So if you're willing, please volunteer to the EFCC to do that.
Kelly,
Hi.
Kelly, you have your
Yeah.
hand up.
Thank you so much. I have a quick question. My husband usually attends these calls, so apologies if it's a redundant question. We're at 3241 West Queen, so obviously heavily impacted. We're on the corner of Henry and West Queen, so it's already very noisy. We don't need any more noise on that corner, or any more traffic and so on. I guess my question is, what is our outreach in terms of who we're trying to get to sign the petition? And I know, Paul, as you had said, there's definitely some value in going door to door. And I'm very happy to play Pokemon Go with my kids. And as we're walking, knock on doors, if I understand kind of who our targets are we extending outside the streets that are surrounding the reservoir? Are we going, into the community a little bit more, posting on those, East Falls pages, neighbor pages, things like that? Or even expanding. I mean, I could post on my social media, but then it would not be, a 19129 area code that might sign that petition. So just trying to understand that a little bit better.
I'd say yes, and yes. So, I think we'd probably find that 1 block, 2 blocks, 3 blocks, yes. And then you can keep going to 10 or 15 blocks if you want. I just think by nature, the people who are closest tend to be more motivated and get more bang for your buck. But keep going and see how it goes. So I sort of just go in concentric circles and just keep walking out. But absolutely, 2 or 3 blocks away, 100%. 100%. We should get those.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Can
Follow the
request?
Follow the Halloween candy round.
Yeah, I know. I should actually just have them sign as I'm collecting Halloween right there on Midvale. So can I just request then, I'm not sure who the right person would be to have someone maybe reach out with like an informational sheet, or if you need someone to sign the petition, like where I can maybe get that printed out, and I'm happy to try to make some rounds in the next, week or so.
I think, Kelly, this is Bill Hoffner. I think I'd probably be the person, as I mentioned earlier, I do have already have a hard copy petition if you want to walk it around. I do not know your email address. I'm weh@wehoffner.com.
Yep. I did just fill out that information page that Paul put in the chat, so you should have it there now.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. So then I'll make sure I get you a copy. I think you said you were 3421?
3241 West Queen, so literally on the corner of Henry and West Queen.
So I can deliver that so long as it's not raining. I melt in the rain.
Yeah, I mean, same. So that's great. Thank you.
Sure. And if anybody else listening wants a hard copy, I can either email it or drop it off, and you can print your own. And again, you've got my email address, weh@wehoffner.com, and I will comply with your request.
Slip it under my door.
Bill, do we know at this point how many people have signed the petition in, I think, 3 days, 2 days it's been up?
Well, you have to realize, Hillary, I think I didn't actually check today at all because I've been I've been in a number of other places. But yesterday there were only like 3 because until tonight, the petition really hasn't been publicized. So the signers are the folks who are testing it out. But it has been tested, it works. And I'm hoping a lot of people listening tonight will be filling out their petition or we'll walk around a hard copy. And other folks who are block captains are happy. I will be happy to make sure they have hard copies that they can walk around for those folks who don't like to do things online.
Okay.
We have a couple in our block, so I'll take care of them.
I'll put out a MailChimp blast to have people look at the petition, read it, and potentially sign it. That goes to 1,000 recipients within the neighborhood.
I think we should see our numbers ramp up pretty quickly.
Mhm.
And did someone say that they would post on like the East Falls community groups? I don't want to take credit for all the hard work that you all are doing, but I'm happy to post it. But if someone already is planning on doing it, it would be a great source, I think.
That would be great.
Yeah, that'd be great. If you go ahead and put it, and you know what? It's okay if more than one person posts on, it's East Falls thingy and the East Falls, the two sites. Have
Awesome.
an
Yeah,
East Falls, have an East
sure.
Falls life, right? And yeah.
Kelly, you are right. This is a numbers game. The more signatures we get, the more we will have Curtis Jones' attention.
And
Absolutely.
And Kelly, if you need any information to help you with the postings, just let us know and we'll provide you whatever materials or background might be helpful for you to do that.
Awesome. I'll probably go to the website and do some copy and pasting of what you've already put together
Sure.
there with some of that background. So I
Right,
think
and
you
I'll be
guys have
adding-
already armed us.
I still need to add a couple more things, which is our proposal to the water department
Okay.
and also the
Links for the water department.
the water department's presentation, and I haven't done that yet, but I hope to do that in the next day or so.
Awesome.
Yeah, we have, well, Francis has a day job. And I just have lots of odd jobs.
Okay, so we're doing pretty good here. Do we have any final questions?
Thank you,
Okay.
Hillary.
That's good. Well, look, everyone, really thanks for being on the call. It's a strange day, as you know, to have a meeting. It's not a Monday or a Wednesday. So thank you very much. Let's look forward to some good, strong neighbor collaboration, and let's make this a good project, because you know we know the neighborhood and we know what a good project looks like. Because we live here. We don't go home because we're already home.
Mhm.
If that sounds right,
Thank
but
you.
okay.
Thanks.
So
Thanks.
I am going to end the meeting, and I will see you all again soon. Please go to the East Falls Community Council website for updates on the link that is up there, right there at the top. Sign the petition. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks again, Hillary.
Thanks.
Everyone,
Okay.
please pass the word.
You bet. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.